fantasy football draft while listening to Balls Deep Sports Talk. How awesome is that going to be? But it's only going to be awesome if we get people to sign up. So, last plug for now for it. Balls Deep Sports Talk Fantasy Football League on NFL.com. Password DEEP. Please join me in displaying your football knowledge and expertise. All right. So, let's get to the opening segment here. Now, every week we start the show with our hit opening segment. This week, to be quite honest, I'm only mildly fired up about most of this. There isn't any one particular story that's got me extremely riled and worked up into a frenzy over it. But there are several stories that I am enthusiastic about. So, keeping that along with the general philosophy that we try and mix it up here from week to week on the show as much as humanly possible, we are going to have college football start off the show. That's right. So this week, college football starts off the opening segment, the hit opening segment. Everyone say it with me. Balls on fire. All right. So this week, Balls on fire. Me, Scotty Ball, is on fire about the beginning of the 2015-2016 NCAA college football season. Now, for some people, this is like the best thing in the world. Like, college football is their thing. One thing I love about college sports in general, especially college football, is the diehards are freaking hard. Like they're like rock hard. They're like the opposite of Tom Brady's balls hard. Oh boy. But the point is that there are tons of people who passionately just live for their college football team and the college football season. I am not one of those guys, for the record. I am a pro football guy. However, I am a football guy first and foremost. And I think the NFL actually doesn't understand how many people like that there are in the world. I think the NFL looks at a lot of its fans as their NFL fans, their pro football fans. Whereas in my case, yes, that is by far my favorite. First and foremost, I am a football fan, not a professional football fan. A fan of the game, a fan of the sport. Played it throughout my entire youth. I was fortunate enough to compete for a state championship my senior year in high school and play in the Metrodome 2 games. It was so I'm a football guy. I love football. I do prefer the NFL to college a little bit, but I enjoy college football very much as well. And that season, like I said, is going to be underway tomorrow. At least if you're a Gophers fan, it's underway tomorrow. Now, in my defense for that, the lack of college football fandom, again, I'm from Minnesota. If you followed the Minnesota Gophers football program at any point in time, I think you would understand, a little bit of how, a young man who loves the game of football could, spend his entire life living in Minnesota and never care about the Gophers football team. Well, that's because they've been irrelevant for the vast majority of my life. I've never cheered against them. I always cheer for them, but it just, you can't quite care as much about something. When you feel like it's just, it's always going to be what it is. But our head coach, Jerry Kill, who we've had for a couple years now in Minnesota, is doing a fairly decent job of turning that around. Every year since he's been here, we get better. We've won more games. Last year we went to a bowl game. I think we lost it. I don't even remember. I'm sure it was a pointless, stupid bowl game anyway. Most of them are, by the way. But anyway, point being, we're relevant at least again as a competitor within our conference. And that alone is something that the Minnesota Gophers have not had in a very, very long time. Now, another thing that the Gophers haven't had in a very long time is playing the first game of the season against the number 2 ranked team in the country, which is exactly what they're doing tomorrow night. That's right. The Minnesota Golden Gophers, open their football season tomorrow night, playing against the number 2 ranked team in the nation, TCU. Now, as far as TCU goes, they were an excellent team last year, and the team before that. I mean, I want to say, top 6, somewhere in there in the final rankings. You always just barely getting hosed by the committee or, playoff selection, what have you. But jury on them so far, based off of what I've heard, is mixed. They did lose quite a few pieces from their team last year on one side of the ball. Their defense is supposed to be pretty crummy, I believe. Their offense will put up a bunch of points. The TCU strength is their offense, but their defense lost a lot and could be considered a potential weakness at this point. At least that's what I'm hearing. So you've got quite a few of the quote-unquote experts, saying TCU is just slightly overrated, maybe somewhere between 3 and 6, 3 and 8, somewhere in there. I've also heard other quote-unquote experts claim that TCU should actually be the number 1 ranked team at the moment, and that they're, underrated at number 2. Me personally, I'd say my best guess would be it's probably, maybe right on, bring them down just a couple notches maybe, but it doesn't matter. All rankings at this point in the game in the college season, they really don't count for a whole lot, because even if, for example, the Minnesota Golden Gophers starting the season against the team who's ranked number 2 in the country, okay? Let's say 8, 9, 10 weeks into the season, TCU has had a crummy season. They ended up proving that they weren't all that good. Maybe they're ranked number 20th, or maybe they're not even in the top 25 anymore, okay? All of a sudden, then, the Gophers, who, in this hypothetical scenario, we'll say beat them tomorrow night, the quality of their win that they are credited for in that game will go down throughout the season as the teams they beat continue to lose, or continue to win. I think that's one of the most nonsensical, just idiotic policies that they have in college football. And they've got quite a few of them, to be quite honest with you. But that one, to me, has got to be one of the absolute most ridiculous. If you want to do it right and fair, the strength of schedule goes by that week, okay? So if we're playing week 4, okay, if we got a week 4 game, we're going up against the 5th-ranked team in the country. And then come, week 11, they're not in the top 25 anymore. We don't get credit for a top 25 victory in strength of schedule opponent then, at that point in the season. No, you should always go back to that and go, that week 4 win that they got was against the number 5 ranked opponent. Period. So that's the value it's given on the strength of schedule. Not, well, at the time they were number 5, but then as the season played on, we all, realized that they weren't as good, so it's, wasn't as impressive of a win or whatever. It's like, that's insane. That's insane. I mean, But anyway, just one of the many college football issues that needs improving, and that's where, I think that's the other part for me too, where the pro versus college, which one do I like more? I think that's why I've always went a little more pro as well. Not just because my local team, has always been fairly irrelevant for the most part, but also just because of the way, the organization, the institution, the league of it is run, and that's not to say that the NFL is or has at any point in time been perfect in those regards, but I think the NCAA would be like the keynote speaker at the sports seminar for, corruption, scandal, shady business operations. So there's that in there too. But anyway, back to real games, real football. The Gophers TCU game tomorrow night. It starts at 8 o'clock. Pretty sure that's going to be on Fox North for all you Minnesota residents. Turn it on. Check it out, okay? Now, our Gopher team actually lost some decent weapons from last season as well. Our tight end, Max Williams, was a beast at tight end. He went on to the NFL in the draft, as well as our running back, David Cobb, was a great producer on the ground for us last year with the Gophers. He is now in the NFL as well, running back for the Tennessee Titans, and he might wind up being the starter on that team. But so there are, some question marks on the Gophers team, filling holes, replacing what we've lost. And then also, as always, it seems like on the Minnesota Gophers football team, at least, not having a quarterback, always having a question mark at quarterback. We can't, for whatever reason, our school will never, I don't think, be able to go out and recruit a kid that can play real quarterback. We always go out and recruit kids that can play high school quarterback and college quarterback. What I mean by that is these kids that don't take a 3-step drop, a 5-step drop, read the defense, do their progressions, and throw the ball. I'm talking about these kids that, they're the most athletic guy. They're extremely fast and agile and have good hands and quickness and all these things. And so we're going to put them at quarterback because that's the person who touches the ball every play. They run the offense with their legs at quarterback more than they do with their arms. And it just seems like that is the type of quarterback that the Minnesota Gophers have always either insisted on getting or been stuck with getting. I'm going to guess that they've always been stuck with that kind of quarterback, and that the actual real quarterbacks are big enough prospects and already looking to the pro game where they're not going to waste time in Minnesota. They're going to go to a USC or a Florida State or an Alabama or anywhere where they got eyes on them and can play in a pro style offense. If there was a quarterback from leaving the Golden Gophers to go try to be, a quarterback in the NFL, one of the cliched statements that you would not see behind that quarterback is ran a pro-style offense. You always see that. That's really cliche come draft time when talking about quarterbacks, is if they ran a pro-style offense or not. Well, he ran a pro-style offense. Well, he's only run a spread offense. He's never ran, But anyway, I want to say the spread on tomorrow night's Gopher game is, TCU by 14, 15, 17, somewhere in there. I'm hoping, I would be ecstatic if the Gophers simply, play a competitive, respectable game where they beat the spread. They in no means need to win this game. This isn't a make-or-break game of any kind for the Gophers. However, if they were to come out and win it, it would catapult them to, much greater potential heights this season than if they come out and lose it. But so it's, it's kind of a really great way, if you think about it, for the Gophers to come out and start their season because they've got everything to win. I mean, if they win the game, it's going to be huge for them. If they lose the game, they really don't lose anything because they're unranked and their opponent's number 2. So, number 2, I will not tolerate your insolent tone. Your stock is rising, number 2. Silence! But again, I implore, I don't employ anybody. I implore, wow, that was a good one, all of my fellow Minnesota residents to make sure to tune in and watch that Golden Gopher football game tomorrow night at 8 o'clock on Fox North. Now, as far as your Big Ten goes, we've got it. The Big Ten now, like many conferences, is split into 2 subdivisions.